Good morning, everybody. Bonjour tout le monde. Adult and Salam alaikum. I think these are the languages which are represented today here. But let me first of all start with Arabic. Okay, start my talk in Arabic. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سيد العميد، السادة الزملاء المحترمين، السادة الباحثين، ضيوفنا الكرام والطلبة الأعزاء، تتشرف كلية علوم التربية باستضافة الندوة الدولية الثانية حول التعدد اللغوي في التربية، الملكات والممارسات. وبهذه المناسبة أتشرف نيابة عن اللجنة المنظمة بالترحيب بكم بحضور فعالية هذه الندوة والمشاركة في إنجاحها. إلا أنه لم يكن لهذا الهدف أن يتحقق اليوم دون الدعم المادي والمعنوي الكبير الذي قدمه السيد عبد الحليم بالحاج عميد كلية علوم التربية. باسم اللجنة المنظمة وباسم طلبة الكلية أتقدم لكم السيد العميد بالشكر الجزيل على ما قدمتم من أجل جعل هذا الملتقى العلمي ممكنا. شكرا لكم ولكم الكلمة. شكرا.
شكرا أستاذ مداوي، شكرا كذلك على الدعوة لافتتاح معكم هذه الندوة الدولية. Donc, tout d'abord, je voudrais vous exprimer le fait que je suis ravi, je suis très content de recevoir les collègues des universités marocaines et étrangères au sein de la faculté des sciences de l'éducation de l'université marocaine de Rabat, à l'occasion de la tenue de ce deuxième colloque sur les contacts des langues en éducation, donc compétences multilinguistiques et pratiques. Je suis content de vous recevoir aussi au sein de cette institution parce que la thématique qui est prévue au programme est une thématique qui relève de la vocation de la faculté des sciences de l'éducation et qui s'inscrit foncièrement et grandement dans toute l'orientation qui est donnée à cet établissement. Donc je vous remercie et je remercie les organisateurs de cette activité scientifique pour nous avoir donné le plaisir de rencontrer des amis qui sont présents dans cette phase, de rencontrer des collègues qui viennent des universités marocaines que je connais et d'autres universités étrangères. Donc bienvenue à tout le monde au sein de cette institution de l'université marocaine de Rabat. Je ne voudrais pas m'étaler sur la thématique qui est prévue au programme parce que les communications qui auront lieu sont des communications de grande teneur scientifique et le programme que vous avez entre les mains est un programme très riche et varié parce que c'est un programme qui témoigne de la pertinence de la présentation de communications qui seront faites par les experts qui ont accepté volontiers de participer à cette conférence et je les en remercie. Comme vous le savez, le Maroc est un contexte plurilingue et pluriculturel. Ça, c'est une réalité. D'abord, pour la coexistence des langues qui sont présentes au Maroc et par la diversité culturelle du Maroc. Nous sommes fiers de cette richesse parce que ça permet donc d'avoir une certaine réactivité par rapport à tout ce qui est culturel, par rapport à tout ce qui est linguistique. Si le multilinguisme existe au Maroc, c'est une composante qu'il ne faut pas négliger parce qu'elle s'inscrit foncièrement dans l'éducation. D'une manière ou d'une autre, elle est là. Si on la néglige, elle est là. Si on la prend en considération, elle est présente. Donc il faut absolument l'intégrer dans la dimension éducative parce que c'est des interférences, ce sont des éléments qui influencent d'une manière ou d'une autre nos étudiants et nos apprenants. Et la recherche linguistique, que vous connaissez tous, a montré que le processus d'acquisition des langues passe nécessairement par une confrontation des flux linguistiques de la langue maternelle et en rapport avec les autres langues qui existent ou qui coexistent dans l'univers de tout apprenant. Sa langue maternelle et bien sûr les langues qui circulent dans le bassin ou bien dans le paysage linguistique de l'apprenant. De ce fait, s'il y a coprésence des langues, il y a automatiquement également des automatismes linguistiques qui s'installent au cours du processus de la langue maternelle. Les psycholinguistes sont peut-être plus aptes à parler de tout ça, mais ce sont des processus cognitifs qui s'installent lors de l'apprentissage, lors du contact avec la langue, et transparaissent également lors de l'apprentissage d'une langue étrangère. Donc la confrontation entre l'effet linguistique langue maternelle et l'effet linguistique langue, seconde ou tierce, sont des faits qui sont partagés. De plus, dans les stratégies d'apprentissage des étudiants, et ça nous échappe, à nous en tant qu'apprenants, ça nous échappe, les stratégies d'apprentissage des apprenants, il arrive que les étudiants ou les élèves prennent eux-mêmes leur langue maternelle comme référence, sans qu'on soit impliqué. Ils prennent leur langue maternelle comme référence, des fois, plus que ça, décalquent le système linguistique de la langue maternelle sur le système linguistique de la langue seconde. Et ces problèmes, bien sûr, de passage d'une langue à l'autre, de langue maternelle à la langue seconde, ne sont pas didactisés. Elles ne sont pas didactisées et ne peuvent pas, de ce fait non plus, constituer un obstacle à l'apprentissage de la langue cible, que ce soit à l'écrit ou à l'oral. Donc il ne s'agit pas d'ignorer ces filtres qui existent au niveau de l'apprentissage des langues, mais il faut les expliciter peut-être pour mieux les comprendre et mieux les prendre en compte et rendre moins difficile également l'intégration des nouveaux traits morphologiques et syntaxiques spécifiques à chaque langue. L'apprentissage, à mon sens, fondé sur la confrontation des langues en présence, donne peut-être une légitimité à ce processus à travers une approche interlinguistique. Je ne voudrais pas dire contrastive, mais peut-être qu'elle est là, parce que le passage entre les deux langues, le va-et-vient entre les langues en présence, il est toujours là, qu'on le veuille. Il est donc porté à la langue d'origine de l'étudiant le même intérêt. Dans un cadre didactique et dans un cadre d'apprentissage et d'enseignement-apprentissage, il est donc intéressant et important de porter le même intérêt aux autres langues, ce qui favorise peut-être l'élaboration des stratégies didactiques interlinguistiques, parce que le plus important pour nous, c'est la maîtrise des compétences, comme c'est spécifié par la thématique de ce pôle. À mon sens, également, l'approche linguistique se fonde sur le postulat que les langues d'origine, ou les langues maternelles, les langues étrangères, ne doivent pas s'inscrire dans une conflictualité. Au contraire, il faut favoriser peut-être le rapprochement, et au niveau psycholinguistique, ça va favoriser peut-être également l'apprentissage de la langue, et qui sait, peut-être la maîtrise de la langue maternelle aussi, parce que cet aller-retour peut favoriser, peut éveiller des mécanismes et susciter des processus qui sont à l'avantage du développement des compétences. Je terminerai en disant tout simplement, avec le rapport de la thématique d'aujourd'hui, que la mise en rapport des langues met à jour les différences et les ressemblances de fonctionnement, que le bilinguisme acquiert ainsi une valeur ajoutée dans l'enseignement des langues et devient de ce fait fonctionnel, avec l'intégration de l'usage de langue maternelle qui n'est plus conçu comme un obstacle pédagogique, mais plutôt comme un élément facilitateur d'apprentissage. Cette approche interlinguistique développe l'autonomie pédagogique de l'étudiant par un regard réflexif sur son propre apprentissage des langues et favorise chez l'apprenant une conscientisation du processus d'apprentissage d'une langue cible, construisant ainsi des compétences stratégiques, peut-être, je dis peut-être parce que rien n'est sûr, c'est un mécanisme de cognition qu'il faudrait peut-être mettre très clair, qui développe ainsi et construit des compétences stratégiques transférables à d'autres langues. Je remercie les collègues présents qui sont parmi nous et qui ont répondu à l'invitation de nos amis qui organisent ce colloque. Je vous remercie d'abord pour votre intérêt à cette thématique parce qu'elle va apporter des éléments nouveaux, surtout avec la co-présence des experts en la matière, que ce soit des universités marocaines, des universités étrangères. Je remercie nos amis qui viennent de très loin parce qu'ils ont pris la peine de répondre à notre requête et de participer à ce colloque. Je remercie les étudiants parce que c'est également une circonstance de formation complémentaire pour nos étudiants. Un colloque, une activité scientifique, pour moi, c'est toujours dans la complémentarité des connaissances et toujours dans le développement des connaissances de nos étudiants. Je remercie donc nos collègues, l'équipe de la faculté des sciences de l'éducation, qui, d'abord pour le choix de la thématique, parce qu'il s'inscrit dans l'actualité de la recherche scientifique en éducation, et pour tout l'effort qu'ils ont fourni pour que ce colloque puisse réussir et avoir toutes les conditions de réussite que nous trouvons aujourd'hui. Je souhaite plein succès à ce colloque et j'espère que nous allons tirer toutes les conclusions nécessaires qui nous pourront nous permettre de faire une publication à la hauteur des aspirations de l'université marocaine et non seulement de l'université d'Oran. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Professor Hash. You have established actually the framework of the whole conference, and I'm sure the presentations will support what has occurred in your speech. Thank you very much once again. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear esteemed colleagues, distinguished researchers, and honorable guests, it's a great honor for the Faculty of Education to host the second International Conference on Language Contact in Education Competencies and Practices for the next couple of days. It's my great pleasure on behalf of the organizing committee to offer a warm welcome to all of you. I'm delighted that you found your way to Rabat and hope that you had an uneventful journey. I wish you a successful work and an enjoyable stay. Well, a year ago, in this very room, we announced the theme of this conference, Language Contact in Education Competencies and Practices. So what is this conference all about? In broad terms, this conference is about multilingualism. But which multilingualism and what is multilingualism? Individual multilingualism, societal multilingualism. So what is this conference about and what is multilingualism? It's hard to define the concepts, but this difficulty stems especially from terminology, from the variety of the terms which are used to define one or the other. Some definitions are competence-based because they define the terms according to what we know, according to knowledge, and some differ the term multilingualism on the basis of use. Professor Gass will take care of this issue and will clarify terminology, things related to terminology in her keynote speech, because she will be asking two questions, one of which is what is multilingualism. Societal multilingualism may be easier to define than individual multilingualism, but it's as complex a phenomenon as the former, and the boundaries between the two are not clear-cut. This is the case because individual multilinguals' competence is not only the outcome of their individual histories, personal trajectories, and amount of investment, but is also the outcome of beliefs, attitudes, ideologies, perceptions, the concepts in which it is hard to dissociate the individual from the societal. Undoubtedly, multilingual competence development starts with the direct interaction between an individual learner's cognition and input at school or in natural setting, but beliefs, attitudes, perceptions, and ideologies all contribute to construct identities which all impact additional language learning. Our relationships between languages are mostly reflected in the feelings of minority language speakers or migrants when learning high-status languages or languages of the host countries, respectively. These power relationships, themselves governed by politics or economics, shape language policies, and the latter in turn are manifested in classroom settings, in the choice of the medium of instruction, for instance, and in teaching materials, hence the input learners interact with. Therefore, and consequently, we are here to say that there are dialectical relationships between all the above-mentioned constructs: input, cognition, feelings, attitudes, perceptions, ideologies, and policies. and they all contribute to shaping multilingual competencies. They also lie behind multilingual practices, using specific languages in specific situations, mixing them, switching from a code to another may not always be innocent behaviors because constructs above do interfere in users' choices. To clarify one of the key concepts which occur in the theme of this conference, namely the plural use of competence, which is competencies, it is just for the fact that competencies are not really homogeneous in the sense that competencies, I use the word competencies just to highlight the plural nature of the multilingual knowledge. We know more than one language, more than one culture, often with varying degrees of proficiencies and with one language or more dominating others. The conference program is designed in a way that allows some space for all the aforementioned constructs, starting by clarifying basic terminology in multilingual research in the first plenary session with Professor Gass, moving to social and educational phenomena, linguistic and psychological issues, and ending with issues in language acquisition. To conclude, I'd like to claim that we are gathered here today because though literally we speak different languages and we belong to different speech communities, metaphorically we belong to the same community, the community of applied linguists, and we speak the same language because we share the same concerns, namely language-related social concerns, which we are expected to address in the most objective way possible. I hope we manage to create a rich program, and I do hope the conference will meet all your expectations. I wish you fruitful discussions and a lively academic exchange at this conference. Welcome everybody. Finally, I'd like to thank anyone who took part in the organizational burden of the conference, colleagues, administrative staff, and students, but especially the Dean of our faculty. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Professor Gass, for being with us. Thank you, Mr. Bihaj. Thank you, Rashida Shrieh. Thank you, Melika. Thank you, students. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I once again thank the organizing committee, invited speakers, presenters, and anyone who made the organization of this conference possible. Thank you for your attention. I wish you a fruitful and pleasant conference. And I think we should immediately clarify terminology with Professor Gass. But before that, let me just introduce our guest, who is Susan Gass, who is a university distinguished professor in the Department of Linguistics and Germanic, Slavic, Asian, and African languages. Her research is in second language acquisition and includes the areas of input, interaction, language universals, and language transfer and attention. She has written, edited a number of books on second language acquisition and has taught and lectured in various parts of the world. She co-edits second language acquisition research with Alison McKay, and currently at Michigan State University she is the director of the English Language Center, co-director of the Center for Language Education and Research, co-director of the Center of Language Teaching Advancement, and director of the Second Language Studies PhD program. She recently has served as president of the International Association of Applied Linguistics between 2002 and 2008, and is associate editor of Studies in Second Language Acquisition. She has been invited to give lectures in Europe, most recently Greece and Germany, and in Asia, most recently Japan, Korea, and China, and she is finally in Morocco. Her latest publications include hundreds and hundreds of articles and books. Just starting from 2000 till now, she has written 10 books and nearly 46 articles, starting from 2000 till now. And of course, it's hard for me to read all these titles, but I advise you to read them. Okay, so now I think, to finish introducing her, let me say that she received many awards. In 1995, she received from Michigan State University Outstanding Research Award. In 1996, she received Paul Pimsleur Award for Outstanding Research. In 1998, Distinguished Faculty Award. In 1998, in 2002, Distinguished Scholarship and Service from the American Association for Applied Linguistics. Thank you, Professor Gas, for being with us. All what remains for me is to hand you over to Professor Gas, who will clarify basic notions without which we will never be able to proceed and read the literature. So let's see what she can, how she will answer the question, what is or how people define multilingualism and the key concepts in multilingualism. Thank you, Professor. The stage is yours.
I got it. Okay. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to answer the questions, but first of all, we have to have the PowerPoint working. I think the projector's not on. Well, while they're working on that, let me, first of all, excuse me, wow. First of all, I better get a drink of water. And thank everybody for inviting me to this conference. Thank you to the organizers. I'm not going to say names because I will not pronounce them properly and I will forget some people. But thank you to the organizers, to the dean, to the students, to everybody who has helped organize this conference. Let me begin by, here we go. Okay, by saying bonjour, salam alaikum. And somebody told me that you say salam salam in Berber. Is that right? No? No. Okay, they told me wrong. Okay, I can't remember, it was somebody in Casablanca who told me that. So that was just a fabrication.
It's azul.
What?
In Berber, it's azul, or in Tamazight, it's azul.
Azul?
Azul.
To say good
To
morning.
say good morning. Yeah. Is that right?
So I'm going to approach this talk a little bit differently from the other talks at this conference. I come from a very different background. I come academically and geographically. You will see as I go through what I want to say that the situation that I live in the United States is so very, very different from the bilingual environment or multilingual environment that you live in here in Morocco and in this general area. We have a lot to learn from you. We have a lot to learn from you in terms of attitudes, policy, all sorts of areas. So what I'm going to talk to you about is the situation that I come from and some research that I've done on language learning. Oh, let me see if I can get this to work. I don't really have to have this, I don't think. Oops, no, it doesn't work. Okay, I'll just use this. It did work. So from the call for papers for this conference, no, I think it's okay. It's just slow. I do have that. I can just do it from here. This is fine, thanks. You talked about the ultimate objective to inform additional language learning and teaching and to reflect on multilingualism and diversity. So as I said, to begin with, I want to just talk to you a little bit about my own background and my both academic and geographical to help you understand where I'm coming from and to interpret what I am talking about. So, as she mentioned, my academic background is I'm a professor of second language acquisition, and that's my area of research. I approach things much more from a cognitive perspective, a psycholinguistic perspective, than the rest of the papers. Well, there's some on language acquisition, a few papers. Most of what you're dealing with here is dealing with power relations, attitude, perceptions, language ideologies, language policy, etc. That is not my background, so I feel that I have a lot to learn from you as well. I do have some expertise in language teaching. I was a director of an English language center at my university. I've been involved not only with English as a second language in the U.S., but I've been chair of different language departments at my university. So I know very well the situation that's involved in foreign language learning, that is learning French in the U.S. or Spanish in the U.S. or Arabic in the U.S. Those are languages that were in my departments. I've had some administrative experience with ILA. I don't know if you're familiar with ILA. That's the International Association of Applied Linguistics. I am now the editor of Studies in Second Language Acquisition, and for some of the students and other faculty, I'll be talking, I guess, on Friday about my editorial work in publishing in the journal. I've authored books and journal articles and book chapters. All of these are on second language acquisition. As I say, the issues facing societal multilingualism are not ones that I'm so familiar with in my own research. Some of the books I think you mentioned that I've done, I'm very interested in research methodology. I do much more quantitative research than qualitative research, although I have great admiration for those who can do qualitative research. I published in second language acquisition, so those are my two sort of areas that I've been working with over the years. Geographical background. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about the very different situation that we have in the U.S. And the place for language teaching and language learning in the U.S., which is not so positive. So just imagine a place where knowing more than one language is not highly valued. Imagine a place where one can go days and days and days and days and more hearing nothing but one language. Oops, let me get that pointer out of the way. English. And I just marvel when I walk in the streets around Morocco and I hear back and forth French, Arabic, maybe Berber, I don't know, but just so many languages on a daily basis. Now this is not the same for all parts in the U.S., but certainly in the very vast majority of places, it is an extraordinarily monolingual society. Imagine a place where knowing another language is sometimes even discouraged. It's not that it's not encouraged, it's very often discouraged. This is not unusual in the U.S. I mean, you don't see signs like this only, but the idea of this what we called an English only, that's okay, don't worry. I think mine is off, I hope mine is off. The so-called English only movement has had importance on and off. There have been some legal challenges wanting to make English only in some states. That hasn't gone through, fortunately, but this is not an untypical situation in the U.S. It has an impact on how the learning of a second or an additional or a foreign language is viewed, and it has an impact, therefore, on where foreign languages are taught. The true multilingualism, as Maconie and Pennycock have talked about, where languages are so deeply intertwined and fused into each other that the level of fluidity renders it difficult to determine any boundaries that may indicate that there are different languages involved. And I find this really interesting and beautiful, and not one that I am familiar with in my context. I fight a different battle at home. I don't fight the battle of power relations or even of attitudes to some extent. I fight the battle of getting people interested in other languages at all. Researchers studying multilingualism are concerned with the ways in which people of different and mixed backgrounds use, play with, and negotiate identities through language. And again, my battle is getting people interested in language. We have incidents in the US even now, and I'll talk to you about one that just happened very recently, but where one recently was a Spanish speaker in Delhi, and they were kicked out of the Delhi for speaking Spanish, saying this is an English-speaking country, you speak English. Another one where Spanish speakers were recently asked for citizenship papers because they were speaking Spanish, and one doubted if they were citizens. And this is not a new phenomenon in our country. For German speakers, it was very similar 100 years or so ago, in the early part of the 20th century. They were suspected of not being loyal, and this has to do with the political situation and wars. And some states even outlaws the use and certainly the teaching of German. But one very disturbing one was probably in the past few weeks at Duke University. Duke University is a very well-known and excellent university in the US, and Chinese speakers were heard speaking loudly in Chinese in a quasi-private area, part of a lounge on campus at the university. Two professors didn't like this and talked to the director of the students' graduate program so that the students could be schooled about the better way to talk. And this is not 100 years ago, this is today. If we look at the language skills of people in the US, you can see from this pie chart, that's about 80% speak English only. Another 20% speaks English other than English well. Those may be what we call heritage speakers, people whose families are maybe Spanish or Arabic or French or Italian. And another one speaks languages other than English, but not well. But you might ask, how much instruction is there? And I don't know where language starts in the school system in Morocco. I bet it's at a very young age. This is where we, in elementary school, you can see not very many, and there's even been a slight decline. The yellow is 2007 to 2008. From 10 years ago, there's even a decline. Middle school, it's more than elementary school, but you see a decline. And high school, it's pretty flat. There hasn't been much of a decline. The situation with those who are majoring in language in the US, this comes from a database from the Modern Language Association. You can see that it's going down, it's just steadily downward trend. There is a downward trend even for Spanish, that is Spanish. You mentioned earlier today that sometimes these issues are political and economical. This is Arabic majors in these years, and look at where there was an upturn, just a complete incredible upturn. And that was based on probably right after 2001, when there was the World Trade Center incident. So it becomes very political in the US. And the downturn continues. 651 language programs have been eliminated in the past 3 years in our country. But going back to the Duke incident, the one positive note, I don't know if it will be positive, we'll see, is calling this a teaching moment for faculty members who have a responsibility not to impose their own prejudices, but also to inform themselves about the realities of multilingual speakers in our multilingual, multicultural, multi-talented world. She further warns that being able to speak multiple languages will soon be a skill only of people born outside